turn it to with the kind of notes you see in America, American dollar notes, in Britain, you wonder what exactly is the problem with our currency notes in Nigeria. And the currency note is a symbol of our sovereignty, so which must not be subjected to any kind of abuse. But the abuse is so prominent, so pronounced, and you see all kinds of Naira currency notes circulating freely, tattered, joined together with sellotape, joined together with all sorts of adhesive. So it's a national embarrassment. It's so prevalent. Even West African and other African countries that I've been to, it's not as bad as what we see here.
Now, so, Professor, how far-reaching is this new policy by the Central Bank of Nigeria?
It's a very noble objective, but the Central Bank of Nigeria cannot do it alone. The Central Bank, through its subsidiary, the Security and Printing and Meeting Company, has the responsibility to print. Central Bank has the responsibility to ensure that the quality of the currency notes being printed is also of standard. That is where the problem starts. You will notice that some of our currency notes, especially 15 naira, 20 naira, most of them will have faded to the extent that you cannot even read anything there. So we need to defend the quality of the print. We know it's expensive to print, but we need to maintain certain minimum standard. So by the time the currency notes are rolled out, then there is need for education to appeal to people to handle the currency with some sense of responsibility, which in most cases has been lacking. You see the currency notes being stored anywhere in the body. You see the currency note, at times some write so many things there, currency note squeezed, and so on. So we need that education. We need to mount that kind of education. By the time that is done, then the law can take its course. That any abuse is abuse against the Nigerian state and needs to be treated as such.
Professor Ajibola, I also want to talk about the cashless policy as introduced also by the Central Bank of Nigeria. We know that in 2014, yes, it became widely accepted. It was now a policy that all Nigerians now needed to key into. How far has that policy actually gone since 2014 till date to reduce the number of mutilated notes in circulation as well?
From available statistics, at least those ones I know, the cashless policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria has done a lot to reduce the volume of currency in circulation in favor of the segment of our money stock held within the banking system. So a lot has been achieved, but we are not yet there. Prior to now, we used to see bundles upon bundles of currency notes being carried from one part of the country to the other. That has reduced. But when we talk about mutilated notes, it's one thing for the volume of transactions in currency notes to have gone down. It's another thing for that policy to have affected the number of mutilated notes in and around. I think the number is still high, relatively high. That is mutilated notes that we need to continue to pursue policies that will reduce that. The cashless policy, like I said, so many of our commercial transactions, economic transactions, are now done within the formal sector, that is the banking system. So that has reduced the need to carry currency notes here and there. So we can say that the cashless policy has, to a very large extent, achieved a lot in reducing the volume of cash in circulation, but we still need to do much more.
Thank you very much, Professor Segun Ajibola, for coming.
Thank you very much.
American ambassador to Nigeria, Stuart Simington, has elicited with President Muhammadu Buhari on his re-election for a second-term bid, describing it as the demonstration of confidence by Nigerians on the personality and integrity of the president. Mr. Simington, who was on a courtesy visit on the Secretary to the State Government to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, in Abuja.
Nigeria and US have had cordial bilateral and diplomatic relations for years, and both countries have been working to strengthen it. It is in this regard the US ambassador is renewing his government's commitment to support Nigeria in a bid to stabilize a democratic institution for the good of its citizens.
We're here to talk about an event that is pretty important in the nation, which is the inauguration of the president. And so we thought we'd get a sense from you of how those plans are going and see if we can go away with a concrete idea of the details. And that's it in a nutshell.
Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, described US as a dependable ally and promised to work together in the interests of both countries.
Issues of mutual benefit and importance to our two nations, two great democracies, one in Africa and the other one in the continent of the US, continent of North America.
And for the forthcoming inauguration ceremony on the 29th May, the US is to support the Nigerian government for a befitting swearing ceremony of President Muhammadu Buhari. Ahmed Ondas Ahmed, NTA News.
75 political parties in Nigeria have passed a vote of confidence on the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, for the successful conduct of the 2019 general elections. This was part of resolutions at a National Roundtable for 2019 general elections. The National Roundtable reviewed and released an official report on the role of the Independent National Electoral Commission and other key election processes stakeholders in Abuja. Timothy Yusuf reports.
The roundtable was convened by Center for Transparency Advocacy in conjunction with chairmen of political parties in Nigeria. The role and performance of stakeholders in the 2019 general elections, issues, challenges and prospects dominated discussions. Varying issues cutting across vote buying and selling, desperation on the part of politicians, near absence of internal democracy during party primaries, intimidation and thuggery during voting were extensively discussed.
Elections, though run by an umpire, in this case INEC, needs the support of critical stakeholders to deliver a free, fair, credible and violence-free election.
We must have stakeholders come together and sit down with the Commission to work out reforms that will further assist to create atmosphere for the conduct of a credible, freer and fairer election come 2023.
When we give peace a chance, we will be able to transform our various countries and we'll be able to transform South Africa as a whole.
A 24-point communique at the end of the round table advocated the establishment of an election offences tribunal to try erring electorate and politicians.
We wish to recommend that more discussions, more of these roundtables be organized at the state and zonal levels to help to deepen our democracy.
The roundtable suggested a 16-point recommendations imploring INEC to strengthen the capacity of its polling staff through training and retraining, particularly on handling the card reader machines, assisting voters as well as other electoral procedures to ensure transparency and credibility during future elections. In Abuja, Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
You're still on to Panorama, coming to you from the Lagos Network Center. More reports after the break.
Chief. Good morning, sir. You are here already?
No. Now my spirit day, my body day for house. What kind of question is that? Were you not the one that fixed this meeting for 8 a.m.? You are now coming by 10 a.m. and start asking me job questions.
But Chief, now, I'm sorry. Don't you also go late for meetings sometimes? You know now, African time.
No more African time. And no more pancaking of face during office hours. At the end of the day, we will lose valuable time. We will not make progress. If we want to move this nation forward, we must treat business as business and respect time. Change begins with me.
Thank you, sir. I am sorry. Can we go for the meeting now, Chief?
Better.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Many thanks for staying. For a long time, security experts, interest groups, and some individuals have called for the full implementation of community policing strategy with optimism that it can effectively curb growing security threats in Nigeria. It was a prayer answered when President Buhari recently gave a new directive on the matter. Ronke Kolawole tells us more.
Community policing is not new to the Nigerian public, as the pilot phase was carried out in Enugu in 2004. Presently, it is being practiced in 18 states. It is aimed at forming stronger ties between the public and the police to collectively tackle issues relating to security.
Community policing is the modern way of policing. Many countries are implementing community policing. So just take the template they use and adjust it to suit our own peculiar environment.
It's quite different from the issue of state policing. But one good thing about community policing is that the community understands the police also understand the community, and there is continuous dialogue.
At the point when security agencies were almost becoming overwhelmed by kidnapping, banditry, armed robbery, and cattle rustling in places like the ever-busy Abuja-Kaduna Expressway, Zamfara, Katsina, Niger, Adamawa, and the Boko Haram insurgents in the northeast, and pockets of violence in some other states, it was a great relief when the acting Inspector General of Police announced at the Forum of Northern Traditional Rulers held in Kaduna that President Buhari has ordered immediate enforcement of community policing in all states.
So policies have been developed here, the strategies have been developed from the force headquarters here, and then disseminated to the various state commands and zones and area commands and police divisions across the country.
For us to be able to have that community policing effectively, we must first and foremost establish public trust on the police. And that can only be achieved through democratic policing.
Experts also call for proper planning to enable the force and other key players in the implementation process to actively tackle challenges.
It is a matter of reorientating the police itself, re-energizing their standard operating procedures, and let them know that this is now how you are going to do it.
On the issue of funding community policing project, an appeal was made to President Buhari to sign into law the Police Trust Fund Bill, which has as its integral part the proper funding of the force. Ronke Kolawole, NTA News.
The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, has inaugurated several projects across military formations in Lagos. The projects are part of efforts aimed at addressing infrastructural decay and creating better working environments for its officers and men. The projects inaugurated are the newly reconstructed hospital as well as medical equipment at the 68th Nigerian Army Reference Hospital, Yaba, and 2 blocks of housing units at Bonny Cantonment. At the Ojo Military Cantonment, the Chief of Army Staff inspected a land dedicated for the construction of the permanent site of the Nigerian Army College of Logistics, while at Ikeja Cantonment, the Army Chief inspected ongoing projects and inaugurated the Nigerian Army Post Exchange. The Army Chief assured officers and men of their welfare.
Accommodation is very fundamental in improving the welfare and the professional efficiency of the troops. If he's sure he has gotten very good accommodation, his family is accommodated, he's ready to move anywhere, to operate efficiently. So we are very much concerned about that. We are innovating a number of blocks of accommodation for the officers and men, and we are constructing more to enable us develop such facilities and accommodate more of our troops that will be recruiting and commissioning as well.
Lieutenant General Tuko Buratai also cautioned media houses and journalists on insurgency reportage, stating that information should be verified before dissemination in the interest of national unity.
Magistrate Salawu of the Abuja Magistrate Court has extended the remand order in the case of police officer Inspector Ogunyemi Olalekon, who allegedly killed the football fan Johnson Kolade, following the failure of the Director of Public Prosecution, to produce the suspect for trial. Vera Chiumba has more.
The police officer, Inspector Ogunyemi Olalekon, who shot the football fan Kolade Johnson, had been arraigned for murder at the Abuja Magistrate Court after an orderly room trial found him guilty of unlawful use of arms. The police prosecutor, Inspector Kehinde Olatunde, had told the court that the defendant committed the offense on the 31st of March at Onikbetese Estate, Idumangro, where Kolade had gone to watch an English Premier League. He had told the court that Ogunyemi used AK-47 rifle to kill Kolade. The plea of the defendant is yet to be taken. The counsel Shola Adeyemi had urged the court to remand the defendant for the next 14 days as against 30 days remand application filed by the prosecution. The magistrate Salawi had granted the application and remanded the suspect in Ikoyi prison following the absence of the advice which was being expected from the office of the Lagos State Director of Public Prosecution. She has extended the remand order. Further hearing continues on the 10th of June. In Lagos, Vera Chumuba, NTA News.
Omolade Aderemi and David Dawiriye emerged champions of the CBN Junior Tennis Tournament in Lagos as Enugu State shines at the first edition of the Southeast Zonal Powerlifting Championship in Enugu. Gift George brings us details on Sports Update.
The 13th edition of the CBN Junior Tennis Tournament ended over the weekend.